We are live, final stream of the week before we tee it up in Canada tomorrow morning, early morning, because we are on East Coast time and they have a lot of guys in the field. I think it's 6:45, 6:50 a.m. Eastern time, the first tee time. So get those DFS lineups in, get those final bets in, because we got just over 12 hours before we tee it up. I'm gonna go through some interviews, some quotes that the guys had about the golf course, more specifically. Nothing real too telling about how any of the golfers. It was Rory, Pendy, Nick Taylor, and one more golfer. Nothing really about their current game that could lead us on or off them, but more just about how the golf course is playing, which is, I think, some important insight and either confirm or deny what you or I have been talking about or building a card around all week. So, yeah, listen up for some good insight here. Start with, honestly, like they all said the very similar thing. So I'm not going to start with any specific guy, but at the end of the day, every single golfer mentioned like how wet the golf course was and how they're like hoping it's going to firm up if possible. And they talked about how this is some of the thicker rough they've seen over the last X amount of weeks. And that kind of confirms what we're thinking about all week. We have this thick rough, and if it's wet, it's going to play much more difficult. Therefore, the bomb and gouge strategy, I don't think is going to be in play. I don't think Rory's going to be as aggressive as he was in 2019 off the tee. I don't think he's going to be ripping driver on every damn hole because if you're in that rough, you could be boned. So what that does is that it's going to expand the field's chances. If Rory and Ches Reavie are playing to a 30-yard gap on every hole, like there's no reason why these plotters can't have success. And like when you look at that 2019 leaderboard, it was Rory McIlroy who was super aggressive off the tee, both long and straight. And yeah, obviously if Rory's long and straight and hits every single fairway, he's going to have an advantage, but it's impossible. The holes that he's in that thick, wet rough, he's going to be potentially boned on or not have a good look as good as a look at as he had in 2019. And also, these guys said that the greens compared to 2019 are a lot more slopey and a lot more difficult around the greens. There's like Nick Taylor mentioned if you can chip off the back, think you hit a good shot, barely miss the green, or it might have been Mackenzie Hughes, and then he rolls down 20, 30 feet, 20, 30 yards, I'm sorry, into a either wet, rough lie or a grainy, tight lies. Like this is gonna be a difficult test because these greens are small. The rough is long and thick. At least from what these guys are saying. I mean, take it all with a grain of salt because I'm on the record for saying players and caddies know nothing. Us as bettors are the most informed people in any subject or any sport, and that goes the same with any sport. Like the most elite bettors in NFL truthfully know more about it than like the third string left tackle. Like I remember I've talked to caddies before out Valhalla. I talked to a caddy. I was like Monday morning. I was like, this seems pretty easy out here. And he's like, I don't know. This seems like it's going to be a really tough test. The score is minus 22. I mean, like at the Honda Classic, I talked to some caddies. I'm like, this is going to be one of the easier Hondas. It feels like just compared to years past. And they're like, I don't know. I'm thinking it's going to be minus 10 or 11. The greens feel pretty firm. Like I don't know how they think this. Like I just don't know how they think this. So it just goes back to show don't take everything that these players say with seriousness. But from what the guys were saying in the interviews, the rough is very thick. It's tough around the greens. The greens are small and the greens are a lot slopier than they were in 2019. With all that being said, I think that just confirms our handicap during the week. Because what I was going with during the week is I was kind of throwing away the bomb and gouge narrative. I was going with the guys who were going to focus on either clubbing down or the guys who were just going to hit a lot of fairways. From there, leaning on that iron play. Precise iron play is the key stat more than off the tee. And hopefully, I mean, you're going to have to consider around the green, but if you're missing a ton of greens, you're kind of just boned anyway because you're still going to have to make, I think, I'm going to go with 15, 16 under wins it this week. But just dial in on that elite iron play. Dial in on the guys who are going to hit the fairways. And the fairways are going to be easy to hit because it's wet. So from what all those guys said in the interviews, and if you're just joining in, definitely go back to the beginning because there's some decent insight from at least from what I think those guys said. So that's the narratives. I'm going to talk over some bets, some players. Any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I bet Sam B at 28-1. It's just a good number on a winner. He's been spotty with his ball striking, been spotty with his putting, but In this a field that's this bad, Sam Burns has won more times than anyone in this field outside of a 4-1 Rory McIlroy, and he's had a fine season. He's won once a year, and the golf courses that Sam Burns have won at, Innisbrook, Colonial, like these are golf courses that you got to club down, hit fairways, and have good iron play. No brainer, like 28-1 Sam B. I did the thing on Cam Young. And those stats to boost Cam Young. He's just hit or miss. He's gutless, but 30-1 golfer in this field who I think is as talented as anyone not named Rory McIlroy, maybe Sahith Theegala. Why wouldn't I throw a 30? Like at the end of the day, if we're saying this field is so bad, 30-1 to beat the group of Rory, Sahith, Lowry, Adam Scott, Keith Mitchell, Maverick McNeely, I'm down. Like I just think the top 6-8 guys have so much more win equity than everyone else. So why wouldn't I try for 30-1? And I'm buying so much stock in Cam Young this season. He's let me down all the times before. But you know who else has let me down a bunch? Xander Schauffele. And I stayed true. I stuck to my guns, and I bet him on a golf course I thought he was gonna play well on. I'm gonna bet Cam Young on a golf course I think he's gonna play well on. I talked about Innisbrook before. Cam Young almost won Innisbrook, and I just think it's a matter of time. I just really think it's a matter of time for Sam B. I bet EVR 55-1. He's a golfer who not scared to win, not scared to make birdies, will hit a ton of fairways. Rio Hisatsune 90-1, I think, is also a good target. 4% owned in DFS. He's a player who more accurate than he is long, which is perfect for this golf course. And his best asset is medium to short irons. Can spike with the putter. If this gets to 20 under, like this is not a Rio course, I want him around 15 to 16, and that's what I'm thinking. So 90 on Rio, down. Seamus Power, I think, is the worst number in this entire. Like I don't know why Seamus Power is 110. I think he should be at most 50-1, and he's playing good golf off of the best approach week of his career. Truthfully, the best approach week of his career at Quail Hollow. Two guys this year have already won off of the best approach week of their career. So why can't Seamus win again? And then some 6K bombs that I talked about in my 6K show. So if you go over to that 6K show and watch it a little bit, but I'll just run through them real quick. Chan Kim, a guy who's gained on approach in 6 straight starts. I think he's a good $6,600. JJ Spawn, he's gained on approach in 5 of his last 5 starts. And when he's at his best, he's gaining strokes on approach, and that's what he's doing now. So I'm definitely down for some JJ Spawn. A golf course he won on, TPC San Antonio, ask you very similar questions, hit fairways and be good with your middle iron. So like those two 6K players. Also bet Gary Woodland, Chandler Phillips, Pearson Cootie, and Joe Highsmith. I just sprayed the board of long shot bombs. And if you want like a detailed explanation on those guys, watch it's all in the 6K DFS video, but also talk about some DFS thoughts. Sorry, I just stuttered for a second. Sahith Theegala, I think, is going to be my guy up top. I'm going to fade Rory. I mean, I could live with fading a 50% Rory McIlroy when I just talked about how I don't think his driver is going to be too much of an advantage. I think if he's dialing back to hit fairways, then it's already an advantage, and he's just going to have to lean on his iron play. And why would I want a 50% own Rory McIlroy who doesn't have his best weapon clicking on all cylinders, meaning his driver? I'm going to go with Theegala. I think Theegala and Tommy Fleetwood are at very similar ownership. And while I think Tommy Fleetwood may be a little safer, Theegala has a higher ceiling, in my opinion. And I'm just so out on Tommy Fleetwood at this price at like 16-1, 18-1, like third highest priced golfer in DraftKings. When has that ever worked? Is in Dubai only. It's only worked in Dubai. So I'm just so out on a Tommy Fleetwood at this price. He could so easily he's just the guy tomorrow and Friday and Saturday to make one bogey and 5 birdies and just be a comfortable 4 under at just playing solid golf, just making no putts. Because that's just so Tommy Fleetwood. And I don't think that's going to cut it this week at all. So I'm going to go with Sahith. We don't know how good he can be. We just know how talented and volatile he is. So I like Sahith. I talked about Cam Young, but I don't love him as much in DFS. Like 28, 30%. It's crazy that he's that high owned when like the narrative around Cam Young is sometimes a bit more bleak. So I'm not sure if I like it. Some pivots outside of Cam Young, I would say, I mean, Alex Noren's projected to be sub 13%, which I don't really believe, but I think that's just a product of where he's priced, 9,900. He's been so good. Like, I think it's 2 reasons for to fade Alex Noren. Outside of the ownership, which is good. He's priced so high, and he's just due to have a letdown. Like, he's not a winner. He's a grinder for sure. He's not a winner. So, I don't hate Alex Noren. This is, like, the only time I've considered him, but I really don't like it. Mackenzie Hughes, there's no reason for Mackenzie Hughes to be half the ownership or more than half, less than half the ownership of um, Adam Hadwin. Like, Adam Hadwin's touching 15%. Hughes is like 6%. I don't know what we're doing here. I know Adam Hadwin has a T6 here in 2019, but he hasn't been playing great golf this year. Hughes has been, I just didn't even think of this. Hughes almost won at Innisbrook comp course. Let's go, Mackenzie Hughes. I think he's going to be a great DFS play. He's one of the Canadians I like. And another Canadian I like, Ben Silverman. I did the bit like I think twice this week, but he's one of the Canadians with the least amount of pressure. He's one of the Canadians that played this course in 2019 well, and his best asset is irons and putting. Dial back off the tee, hit fairways, focus on those irons, focus on putting. And that's what Ben Silverman does, playing free. Even if Ben Silverman were to win here, he's probably not making the President's Cup team, so he's got nothing to lose. He doesn't have to deal with that, oh, Mike Weir is watching me, or Taylor Pendrith, Adam Hadwin, Mackenzie Hughes, Corey Connors are like, this is a big week for them, and they have a lot to play for. Everyone's following them. I'm going to dial back with the Canadians. I like Ben Silverman. I like Mackenzie Hughes at the ownership. Adam Svensson I also like, but the ownership kind of got out of hand. I'm going to pass there. Keith Mitchell, I'm going to maybe give him one more run. He's just at fair ownership, and he's a decent pivot off of Aaron Ryan, Tom Kim. Aaron Ryan's gonna balloon up in ownership. Tom Kim is I think he's gonna be the chalkiest guy in that 8K range. Whereas, I mean, sure, maybe Aaron Ryan and Tom Kim are better than Keith Mitchell, maybe, but I don't think they're double the ownership better, or at least maybe a third of the ownership better. Keith has been so good with his irons this year, which is you need on a course like this. And if I'm wrong and it becomes a bomb and gouge fest, Keith fits that narrative as well. So we'll go with Keith there. Ryan Fox, I believe he's around 71, 7,200. Let me double check. Ryan Fox, 7,300, sorry. 4% ownership. Ryan Fox and Rio Hisatsune at 4% ownership. I like that a lot. Ryan Fox is uber aggressive, can spike all across the board. He also has the bomb and gouge if it works out to be that way, but I expect him to dial back. And courses that he's played well, Colonial last week, a course that makes a ton of sense to comp with this one. So I like some Ryan Fox action. And then finally, Adam Scott. I went with Adam Scott over, but I think Adam Scott and Maverick McNeely are both decent plays because they're both a bit overpriced and they're both being a bit overlooked, and they both have that top 15 ceiling. Maverick's gained on approach in I think 4 or 5 straight, and he's played well at club down golf courses, where Adam Scott is just always a generational backdoor top 15 guy, which will be great for your lineup. So yeah, that about wraps it up. Any questions before we tee off, shoot me a DM, but all the content's on my Twitter feed, all the content's on the YouTube page. Golf Gambling Podcast does it like no other. So good luck this week. I'll catch you guys Friday night with the final thoughts, and Monday with the Memorial preview. Peace out.